Mic test. Steve, can you hear me?
I can. Thanks, Rico.
Thank you.
Crystal, are we streaming? Good to go whenever you are.
Good morning. Good to see you all here. I'm glad you could join us this morning for our meeting, so I'll call to order the meeting of Post-Secondary Technical Education Authority. And we are Thursday, March 27, 2025. So welcome to all in the room and outside of the room. We're glad you could be with us this morning. Before we dive into our agenda, are there any changes or additions from the TEA members to the agenda? If not, we'll move forward with the approval of the minutes from January 30th, 2025. They should be in your packets. Hopefully you've had a chance to review them. Any changes?
Curtis moves to approve.
Okay, Curtis, do we have a second?
Second.
Dave? Any opposed? If not, the motion's carried. Okay, we'll move on to introductions. I think we have an introduction this morning, at least one.
Yes, I do. Good morning. Thank you. I wanted to briefly introduce Brandy Wells. She is our workforce program specialist, and she is sitting right back here, and she'll stand up. And we stole her from the Healthcare Stabilization Fund. She has already said that she plans to retire from KBOR, so we are very excited about that. You will see more emails from her, and you will see her more, and we are excited to have her. And I just wanted to, this is her first in-person TEA meeting. She was hired the week of Thanksgiving, and so with all the stuff and everything, she has not actually experienced y'all in person just yet. Thank you.
Well, welcome, Brandy. And do we look as good in person as our pictures? Well, welcome. We're glad to have you. Okay, the next item is Chair's Report. I have one item that I wanted to mention. I recently had the opportunity to sit down with Scott Smathers at Washburn Tech. He did buy lunch. And I got a chance to hear about the generous financial commitment that they received. Pretty exciting for Washburn Tech. And also hear about their plans for the North facility. Is that right? The North facility. And for me, it's exciting to see how Washburn Tech continues to expand their presence, but also their outreach in the city of Topeka. So congratulations, Scott, and your team for what you do, but also what you have in mind to do. So congratulations on that. Okay, other EA members that want to report on any activities? There she is.
Now, you know, I'm going to always talk about K-12.
There.
So, and you know, we're so excited at the last committee meeting, and maybe you mentioned this about T-Calc and the exciting new teacher pathway opportunities that will now be looked at as a CTE pathway. As we're preparing teachers for the future, we're piloting that and we're excited about that, and thank the curriculum committee for the support and KSDE for the support for that. And then this morning I learned that, and I guess maybe this really falls more in the aviation area. So Curtis, maybe that's your area, but Mr. Dick and I were talking this morning about all of the students interested in aviation, and possibly there being an aviation pathway that is being considered right here in Topeka. And I don't know if that's a piece that you're part of that conversation, but we'll be updating the TEA. So T-Calc has asked if they could come at a future meeting. And then remember my 8th graders, I'm done teaching 8th grade, y'all. But the 8th graders would like to give a report either to the curriculum committee or to the full TEA about CTE from a middle school perspective and opportunities in the future. Of course, their last day will be in May, but students have volunteered to come in June or July or August. So whenever whenever the board deems they'd like to hear that, I'd love to schedule for a few young people to come and talk with you about their thoughts after that CTE experience in my class this semester. That's it.
What else?
Season. And we have had BPA that was held in Wichita, DECA on the campus of Kansas State University. HOSA is currently going on. I was there yesterday at Kansas State University. And in Topeka next week, kicking off Monday, we'll have FBLA. So head to the Expo Center, as well as TSA next week. So lots of students doing lots of exciting things in CTSOs.
Anyone else? Last time. All right. We'll move on. And we'll want to hear from Vice President April White, report on workforce development activity.
Thank you, Chair Frederick. Our group are working on several issues right now. So we are in the midst of reviewing adult ed applications. That is a giant process. We have 22 people looking at applications in and out of the state. So all of our WIOA partners are represented in those review committees. So we're not all reviewing the exact same thing. So we are in the middle of that and should have some recommendations for programs mid-April. We are also working to transition the adult ed data system from being housed inside KBOR to an outside vendor. About 30 other states are using this other vendor, so we are transitioning all of our data for adult ed to that company, and we should be up and running with them July 1st. So it is gonna. Hector could actually talk about that. He's the one making us do it.
Thank you. That's a good question, and thank you, April, for bringing that up. And we are moving our data management system from an in-house that is being created for many years and is being patched for several years. Then we are moving into a new software that is being used by 30 other states, and we are moving all the data. And the beauty on this is that all the federal reports are being done and updated in this system already, that we don't need to redo it and reprogramming the data management system. Then is going to be more comprehensive for the providers in Kansas. It's going to be easier to upload information and data, and it's going to be more reports and for local programs and for the state.
So on top of having new providers mid-April, we have to get everyone prepared and all our data moved by July 1. So we are in a dead sprint to make that happen. Other things that are happening, we are reviewing the nursing grants right now. We also have members of the Kansas Hospital Association and the Board of Nursing and our Academic Affairs Unit who review those applications, and they should come to you next month. They'll be on your agenda for next month. Charmin and her team have done a realignment of the police science program. If you guys aren't aware, that business and industry meeting took place on Tuesday. Very productive meeting. I want to say most of the people who are on the business and industry committee are currently on local advisory boards or are serving as adjunct faculty in our colleges. So we got some great feedback there. On February 11th, our unit attended the Complete College America launch that we had at Washburn University. So that is going to be focused on how do we get change policies to help students complete their programs. So just a couple of reminders of things for President's Extraordinary Costs are due mid-April. If you have any issues or those aren't done, reach out to Charmin. The program alignment verification process was due on March 1st. So I believe everyone has done their part. Now it's staff's part. We will also be doing that the next month. And for TEA members, just a reminder that your statement of substantial interest should be coming out. Those are required every year, due by, I believe, the end of April. But you should be getting an email soon about that. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to either myself or Becky Potabom. Let's stand for questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, this is more of a random question, April, with the activity going on in DC and the shuttering of the U.S. Department of Education, potential shuttering. Have you, I'm sure you're planning for the impact, but have you heard rumors or tales or guidance?
I'm not in that signal chat. So I'm not sure what exactly is all happening, but we do believe obviously the federal financial aid would be moved to the Small Business Administration. There has been talk about loans being privatized, which is concerning. That is concerning for fairness of loans. As far as we know, our contacts for Perkins, we have 2 who are still employed. So we are fine on Perkins. On the adult ed side, we have 4 people, the 4 people for the whole United States to speak with. So it's a little harder. We have not been given any direction on who's going to take over Perkins or adult ed. We haven't received award notices, obviously. So we're in the dark right now on what's going to happen, and even funding, we're in the dark.
So to piggyback that, in fact, I was late coming from Topeka High's honor roll assembly. And so a conversation about how young people are going to pay for opportunities in the future, whatever pathway they're in. And of course, at T-High, you have a lot of those T-Calc students and just CTE students in general. So I guess much like Topeka Public Schools, we're delayed in getting some of the information we're used to getting about funds that we're going to get. Sounds like you're experiencing the same thing. At this time of the year, there's certain pieces of information we would know that we don't currently know. But as you receive that in real time, is that would it be an appropriate expectation that in real time, we get those immediate updates? I mean, you do such a great job of doing that by email, but as those things come out at the off times when we're not meeting, that way, as we build the legislative advocacy voice in our own students at the K-12, end and through our CTN, and really having advocacy from voices of people who vote to say, having an awareness of the impact to them. The sooner we hear it, the more those letters can be written, and whether they make a difference or not, we'll see. But at the end of the day, at least just the awareness in real time, not 2 weeks later or the next meeting. Is that a fair expectation moving forward?
We are members of different professional development groups, obviously for adult ed and Perkins. None of us know anything right now. Natalie, you're also on those committees. Have you heard anything that we haven't heard?
The Department of Education as far as our CAR report and our SDPLs that we're setting. We'll be going there April 22nd for our advanced CTE, and we're to have an update from someone from the Department of Education. We have one Dear Colleague letter that's come out. Of course, they've recommended to appoint someone to oversee Perkins from the state of Florida who's well respected in the Perkins arena. So
we'll have an update, obviously April 24th, I think we'll be Zooming. That's a meeting, correct? The TEA meets on April 24th. We'll be Zooming in from that conference. So hopefully we'll have something to share.
April,
Yes.
I think this is working. Is that working? Okay. You mentioned that you've not heard, you've not gotten for pending notices, which is kind of the state I think a lot of higher ed is in right now. Approximately how much of that pending one is it based on a fiscal or July 1 year, or were these for January 1 that you're waiting?
It's fiscal year.
Okay.
Fiscal year. So Perkins, it's over 13 million. Adult ed, we're over 4.
And that's what we're waiting
Mhm.
for.
Well, definitely a lot of uncertainty, you know, hard to at times know how to plan, but plan we must. Continue on as best we can. All right, we're going to hear from our community colleges. Seth, welcome.
Good morning. How's everyone? Good. We will start with our favorite community college this morning. That'll be Colby. Not that there's any level of bias or any false pretense there, but really wanted to focus on, again, the strategic plan from the Kansas Board of Regents. The first thing we're going to be focused on is Pillar 2, Business, Talent, Pipeline, and Innovation. So we have highlighted, as we've done in a series of all these reports, we have highlighted essentially 6 or 7 colleges to really go through and focus on what they are accomplishing and the different initiatives that they have undertaken. Colby Community College has really tried engaging youth. We've done this through a variety of different STEM camps, having all these kids out on campus, just trying to get them engaged and seeing the different initiatives that the college is working on. Our associate degree nursing program had the highest wage placement amongst all 26 community and technical colleges in the state of Kansas, which exceeded $82,000. That was year 1 wages. That's according to the Kansas Training Information Program. Our dental hygiene and physical therapist assistant program both had a 100% first-time pass rate on their national boards. Practical nursing had a 96% pass rate on the NCLEX as well. Going back to November, late November, the college hosted over 50 middle school students for our JAG program. We have partnered with our local high school to go through and have those students come out. That is the jobs for American graduates as they come through and take a look at that. We have increased CTE enrollment at the college since 2020 by over 33%. We also hosted our second annual Ag Career Fair. Our area is very different. I have a story once where I explained to people, and one morning I worked on a $50,000 donation, 2 pigs being donated to the college and dirt for the college farm. That was all before 12. So our college is pretty unique in that ag is the primary focus of business and industry in our area, but it did focus on ag business, ag economics, agricultural education, animal science, beef production, equine science, and veterinary nursing. It was very well attended, and we were very well represented by business industry locally. From the innovation standpoint, Colby is also pretty unique because we have a Grow Safe program. We have an operational farm at our institution. We partnered with Carpenter Cattle Company, where we had students, they literally saw these cows being born as they were calves. We went through calving season. They got to see them mature all the way through, and they have gone through, I don't like saying slaughter, but I can't think of a better word. They've gone through that full life cycle for that. So students got to see it from beginning to end. Carpenter Cattle Company agreed to purchase those from us at market weight to go through so the college would not lose any revenue. And then we received all the carcass data back based on the yields and what they were feeding. Really a neat process to go through and see that full life cycle and how that played out. Our physical therapist assistant program also created 15 new clinical arrangements throughout Kansas, Nebraska, and Colorado. And again, for those of you that are not familiar with Colby, I'm closer to Denver than I am to Topeka, Kansas. So those relationships are very important even throughout that regional state area. Last Friday, the college hosted our annual bull sale. We had over 50 individuals there bidding physically. And I don't know the exact number online, but we sold 68 bulls at an average of over $5,000 per bull. and our students worked every bit of that. Just a really cool process to see that. And the college has been doing that for the entirety of the duration that I've been there, but we've never had that well attended, or I guess the cattle market. I wish I owned cattle. I don't, but that market is going very well. College we don't like nearly as well as Dodge City Community College compared to Colby, but they provided some really wonderful information focusing on the talent pipeline. Dodge City has made a concentrated effort to connect with local high schools and local high school students. Nearly all technical programs at Dodge City Community College are available to high school students. They have developed a technical education schedule where high school students can enroll in a variety of programs with the same daily start and end times, just trying to make that more seamless for those secondary students. They have seen an Excellency T high school student numbers triple in the last 5 years from where their current enrollment was. Dodge City receives Excellency T students from over 13 high schools. Individual high schools are invited to tour Dodge City's technical programs, and they host 8 to 10 high school spring visits each year. They also host parent nights with high school students to inform parents of technical education programs and Excellency T opportunities. From the innovation standpoint, Dodge City has leveraged multiple partnership opportunities to develop an automotive technology. They have received a Kansas Department of Commerce draw grant to build a new automotive technology center. They have partnered with Dodge City Public Schools for new equipment for its revived automotive technology program. Dodge City has also partnered with Lewis Automotive to provide staffing for the program in the first few months of program's inception. Dodge City has also leveraged the Department of Education Title IV funds in support of the program. They have also used capital outlay tax credits to make this program occur. Fort Scott Community College has had their Aggie Day contest, which will take place in March. I apologize, when we turn in these reports, we have to turn them in early. So if you're wondering why you're getting a little bit of a retroactive perspective, that's why. They drew in over 1,000 students from the area, from the 4-state area, to come into the event. It offered valuable opportunities to engage with high school students exploring careers in agriculture, welding, construction trades, HVAC, and heavy equipment operation. After graduation in December, 100% of Fort Scott Community College's cosmetology students passed their state licensure exam. The first cohort of Fort Scott's John Deere new certification program will graduate in May of 25. Their nursing department had a 93.33% first-time pass rate and an overall of 84.21% pass rate on the NCLEX in 2024. In fall of 24, 89% of Fort Scott students successfully passed the CNA certification exam. From the innovation perspective, John Deere certificate program was developed in response to industry demands, providing students with a flexible 1-year option for them to pursue their education. Fort Scott Community College is finalizing a memorandum of understanding with Kansas City University aimed at strengthening rural healthcare. And this agreement will enable students from rural areas to apply for KCU's medical dental programs with slightly modified entrance qualifications, expanding access to these advanced healthcare programs while encouraging graduates to return and serve their rural communities. From Garden City Community College, they have 6 Western Kansas Career Showcase events that have been focused on agriculture, education, technology, and healthcare. There have been 17 Western Kansas school districts who have attended their career showcases with over 200 students at each showcase. There are 2 more events occurring this spring. This is a great opportunity for students to connect with these programs and really see what career opportunities exist within these fields. Garden City Community College had the highest credit hour enrollment rate in its 106-year history in the fall of 25. The spring 2026 enrollment is trending as it increased 12.5% in headcount and 16.6% increase in credit hours as of February 15, 2025. There was a 339% increase in Excel and CTE from 2019 to 2024. Their 2023 to 2024 Practical Nursing Associate degree NCLEX had a pass rate of 100%. This is the second year in a row in which the highest average number of transfer credits in the state of Kansas throughout the system. They've increased access to on-ground 4-year degree opportunities in Southwest Kansas through partnerships with K-State, Newman University, and Fort Hays State University. They've increased the ease of transfer with dual advising partnerships with Wichita State University and Fort Hays State University, which is currently in progress. Garden City has worked on the innovation side with industry and local business initiatives to create a new SAP program for community healthcare workers. Garden City has coordinated with Kansas Board of Regents to gain approval for this new program with a 10 credit hour program aligned with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. Students will develop expertise in community outreach, They will work for social support and advocacy. Upon completion of the program, students will qualify to register as a certified Kansas community health worker and can work in a variety of settings, such as healthcare clinics, public health departments, community-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, as well as schools and outreach programs. GCC will also be the first institution in Kansas to approve this program and plans to enroll in the beginning of spring 2025. They launched registered apprenticeship programs in automotive and early childhood education. Highland Community College within our talent pipeline here. Member Rice, I'm sure you know a little bit about what's going on there, but we'll go through and explain that in a little bit greater depth. Highland Community College has 2 career job fairs planned. The first at our Western Center on March 4th with 29 employers planning to attend, and the second at the Atchison campus on March 7th with 62 employers signed up to be engaged in that process. Practical nursing had a 100% first-time pass rate on the NCLEX exam. The associate degree nursing program had a 93.1% first-time NCLEX pass rate exam. As part of CTE Month, Highland Community College awards outstanding student awards in each program, as well as 25 scholarships at an assembly attended by all students and scholarship donors. From the innovation perspective, Highland Community College is expanding their medical assistant online program to an additional 14 medical areas and hospitals. The Highland Community College Electrical Technology program is installing a solar panel system at our electrical facility as part of the training for alternative fuel powers trainings. Highland's precision agricultural programs are preparing for the upcoming planting season with training on precision planting systems. And lastly, Hutchinson Community College. Hutchinson Community College hosts the annual Career Connections Job Fair. In the past 2 years, an average of over 200 employers have signed up for this event, and they have engaged with over 1,000 students. The 2 leading fields being recruited are healthcare and industrial trades, with many other companies recruiting in business, IT, public safety, and pre-K to K-12 education. The Student Success Center hosts a transfer fair twice a year for students interested in continuing their education to a 4-year college university. Typically, 24 Kansas colleges and universities participate and engage with Hutchinson Community College students. Hutchinson Community College partnered with Hutchinson-Reno County Chamber of Commerce for Career Quest. This program provides all Reno County 6th graders, which is approximately 650, the opportunity to tour and learn about programs at Hutchinson, Hutchinson Career and Technical Education Academy, and a variety of other industries throughout the school year. Through partnerships with Wifeco, Steel Products, the Bradbury Company, and Superior Boiler, 5 current high school students are participating in youth apprenticeships in welding and machining. These students are taking the skills learned at Hutchinson's technical courses and applying them in the field every day, creating a seamless pipeline from industry to employment. In partnership with Hutchinson-Reno County Chamber of Commerce and Hutchinson Career and Technical Education, they host an annual signing day in May for high school students entering into a CTE pathway. The Future Apprenticeship Success Program at Hutchinson Community College begins during summer of 2024 and increased from 2 to 4 sessions. Students were able to select a track in construction, manufacturing, auto mechanics, auto collision repair. These were 5 days a week, and they went from 8 to 5, approximately 3 weeks, and students were able to earn between 4 to 7 credit hours. There were a total of 75 participants, with 23 in construction, 17 in manufacturing, 22 in auto mechanics, and 13 in auto collision repair. They also hosted future Dragon boot camps as one-day experiences that were offered to 90 high school students participating in a variety of CTE programs. This was the 5th year of the event for hosting the event. They will also participate in Kansas State Skills USA Championship Contest on April 23rd through the 25th at Hutchinson Community College, Hutchinson Career and Technical Education Academy, and the Kansas State Fairgrounds. Hutchinson Community College students' pass rates were able to excel on a variety of licensures. Their NCLEX RN pass rates were 98.82%. Practical nursing was 94%. Cosmetology, the 2-part exam with the Kansas Board of Cosmetology, 95.45% and 100%. Paramedic NREMT, 100%. Respiratory care, 82%. Health information management, 93%. Radiology technology, 97%. Each one of these job programs have respectively a 94 to 100% job placement rate. As far as innovation, Hutchinson Community College partners with Prairie Land Partners AgriVision to use Hutchinson Community College farms to train employees on new John Deere equipment and technology. An added benefit that this is the state-of-the-art equipment that can be used by ag students as they learn to plant and harvest crops at the Hutchinson Community College farm. A new ag diesel program partnership between Prairie Land Partners, AgriVision, and Hutchinson Community College is planned to begin in the fall of 2025. Expansion of the Hutchinson Community College nursing program is also planned for the fall of 2025, adding 20 additional seats to the incoming cohort of students, increasing to 100 total associate degree nursing students for the program on an annual basis. We stand for any questions or concerns as presented.
Hey, any questions, comments from staff?
Not a question, but the comment on the data that you presented, which
ma'am.
is impressive. Sure, I think you read off all of the data points, but 100% pass rate for Highland, Hutchinson, Colby, in all health science fields is impressive. And I think all of them have somewhere between 98% and 100%, whether it's nursing, dental hygienists. Not sure what all you attribute that to in terms of preparation, but 100% pass rate is pretty remarkable for multiple schools. Just point to be made. And if there's something that you can mention in terms of the practical nursing and just the preparation, since that seems to be a trend across the board, 100% pass rate, that's outstanding.
Yeah, our institutions have done very well. We're hoping that we continue to prepare students in that manner. We do have wonderful faculty. We have people that really care about our students. And I also think part of the insurance requirements that we've required for students, we have adapted to some of the changes. The NCLEX, as some of you may know, the NCLEX was completely revised within the last year. I think just making sure that we are preparing students for that and then to enter into that workforce, because those healthcare fields are so critical. And it's one of the challenges that we deal with in Colby. We can produce 50 nurses a year and they want us to produce 100, but we keep running into population issues. Our area is just very different than most, so I can really speak to that. But a lot of our colleges have done a tremendous job, and thank you for acknowledging that.
Okay, anyone else have a question or comment? Thank you, Seth.
Thank you so much.
Impressive information. Okay, Jim, you are next on the list. We're going to hear about our technical colleges.
Yesterday afternoon, I left the office at 3:30 to go to a regular check-in with my doctor, and she said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm tired." And she goes, "Why?" I said, "Well, so far I've put in 36 hours this week." Seth's doing that too. It's crazy time. So, we have all the talk about the state and federal stuff. So, as you know, I'm a rock and roller. So, here's 3 quick songs that reflect what we're going through. Number 1's easy. Ozzy Osbourne and Crazy Train, right? Number 2, older, Genesis, Land of Confusion, back from the 80s. My favorite, Springsteen, Dancing in the Dark, because no matter what's going on, we're going to keep dancing, right?
Thank you for not singing.
Don't worry, I don't do that. Not even in the shower. Seth has great information for their institutions. We do as well. Our report is talking about some students and some events. Flint Hills Tech, one of their students, Kevin Brown, student in the automotive program, received a scholarship from the Midwest Auto Care Alliance to attend the High Tech Automotive and Training Expo Vision Conference in Kansas City in March. High Tech does a lot of premium work related to auto body work with automobiles, all sorts of things, and it's very elite. So that's a pretty cool honor for that student. Flint Hills also hosted their 3rd annual Ernesto Juntos event in early February. It's a recruitment event aimed at their Spanish-speaking population, and it really does a good job with comprehensive admission, program information on how to finance things, job placement, et cetera. So it's a really great event that they've been doing now for 3 years. The City of Emporia, Lyon County formalized proclamations to recognize February as CTE month, and they made sure that Flint Hills Tech was recognized in their proclamations. The college is working with many community members as Karen is putting together a different strategic plan for the college. They've had representatives from the City of Emporia, Lyon County, Coffee County, many of the health industry and manufacturing businesses, migrant education, the school districts, and alumni. And they're working on a very major capital campaign with all of that as well. Flint Hills Tech with Ben, early college program at the Tech College has grown in size and success since 2017 when they started with just a handful of institutions. Now there are over 70 students in many of those smaller high schools already. Their early college students are graduating each year with a high school diploma and their AAS degree. They're also working on leveraging base operating grant funds to expand CDL instruction in Goodland, helping Seth out nearby as well, and that whole region with CDL, and that's a big need across the country, across the state. This collaboration and leveraging the base grants added a new semi and trailer to use for training and the ability to hire part-time evening and weekend instructors. Greg's here, Salina Tech. He's making my head spin with what he has going. They're doing a great fundraising effort to help students with food insecurity issues to help keep them in school. Gear Grub is the mission focus of the Greater Salina Community Foundation fundraising effort to help the students in need. They're working with their communities in their service area to bring programs to the communities and helping students reduce travel time. They've also improved outreach by tailoring programs that can help alleviate crowded campus spaces to better serve students. They're also working with area businesses to start various apprenticeship and internship options for the growing construction industry. There's been pretty good economic activity in Greg's region, and that need for both manufacturing and construction workers continues to grow. Scott, Washburn Tech, as Ray mentioned, they're going gangbusters. They've opened a new campus health clinic to help students with another alternative to meet their healthcare needs. Enrollment's up for the spring by over 6% compared to last year. They've also successfully completed the Board of Nursing review for their new ADN program. At our shop, I have different people write some of this, so I gotta hang on. Yesterday, we had our annual career fair. We had about 65 employers, about 200 people go through it in the new building. Recently, we've had a variety of employers contact us even before they contact our Chamber of Commerce or EcoDevo as they're looking to expand and retrain people. So we've been hopping and going like crazy. We have a full section of welding going on at Fort Riley with Second 8 Weeks and met with the brass there. They're thrilled with what we're putting together for them. The Flint Hills, the Greater Manhattan Community Foundation has been stepping up to help us in a lot of ways, both with the new building. They provided us with almost $150,000 additional dollars to help with healthcare so that we could attract and retain faculty. That allowed us to hire a second full-time CNA instructor and allowed us to keep some of our nursing faculty. Good results Seth mentioned, similar with our institutions, but what we all face is the competition to find faculty that are qualified, especially at the RN level where they're required to have a master's. The Community Health Foundation, which is Via Christi's arm in our community, is providing the same funding to us this next fiscal year. A few weeks ago, that Community Foundation annual gala to raise money for the Community Foundation through Via Christi featured 3 student videos. All 3 students were Manhattan Tech students, medical lab tech and 2 in nursing. So with all the craziness in the world, I think one of the key things we have to keep in mind is we keep doing what we're doing. Because if it makes a difference to employers, we're going to be all right. So those employer connections are more critical than ever. Glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Gotta figure a button out. So, and Seth's out, so I guess it's on you, Jim. Or if Seth comes back. So there's a lot of change and, as you said, craziness. I put confusion, but okay. Which both are applying right now. What do you think or see for the challenges or for change ahead for technical ed or just generally?
Good question. Let's start with tech ed. One thing, it's the most valuable part right now of higher education in the state, whether it's for the community colleges or through us. If you look at the data from KBOR, the tech college enrollment's grown 70%. What kind of blew me away when she was presenting information at the last KBOR meeting, the tech colleges have grown male enrollment in the last 10 years by 64.5%. That bucks every national trend of higher education there is. That's pretty significant. I think our flexibility, and I hope that is the one thing that's not taken away, the flexibility within the tech world to work with companies to grab people who can teach because they have skills. They may not understand teaching as well, but we can help them with that. But that ability to get somebody who knows, here's how you do construction, here's how you do plumbing, et cetera. Because that way we know we're filling what the employers are looking for, that entry-level worker, basic skills. If we satisfy that, then we can build more training, more interaction of customized training with the employers. And to me, that's part of the ticket because that's usually paid by the employer. It's paid without using necessarily public funds. How do we get away from relying on public funding? You're never going to get totally away from it, but how do we make our value be recognized by employers, by the people we serve, so there's more partnerships, whether it's with hospitals for healthcare, et cetera. There is some good news on the public side, though. You may not be aware, for the last 2 years, the tech colleges have had a base operating grant. Each tech college has received $1.5 million since we don't have local property taxes. Now, what that appropriation is going to be, we still don't know. But the House and Senate both passed unanimously to put that grant into statute. Unanimously. Because we produce results. There's a lot of talk of efficiency. It's scary if you don't say effectiveness first, because if you're not effective, you don't worry about efficiencies. There's a lot of things in the Kansas higher ed system, and especially with the two-year colleges, especially with the tech colleges, that is effective. So how do we protect effectiveness while everything's looking at efficiencies, which right now is just cutting without worrying about impact? Last thing I would say is, people say, you got to think outside the box. Guess what? The box is gone. It is gone. So how do we have the freedom to think differently? The problem is our structures, financial aid, and I'm not picking on these as bad things, but financial aid policies and procedures, yada, 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 don't necessarily invite innovation and experimentation. So how can we have some flexibility for that? Even HLC has recognized we have to be more innovative and experimental because the existing structures aren't going to cut it.
Okay, anyone else have a question, comment?
You might share the news of President Cheers.
Yes, thank you. So Ben, I love Ben. I think we all do. He's a cool young man. He's accepted the position to be VP of Economic Development with Fort Hays State University starting in July. We're sad to lose him out of the tech colleges. It'll be interesting to see how they approach replacing him. On the other hand, higher ed system's getting a young man with a lot of good ideas, good experience, excellent people skills, communication skills, so hopefully we can embrace that. It's going to be an interesting next few years. We'll put it that way.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Thank you, Jim. Okay, we're moving into the consent agenda. We have one item from the Budget and Finance Committee and 10 items from the Technical Program and Curriculum Committee on the consent agenda. Comments?
Only comment, Ray, would be to make the motion to approve the items outlined on the consent agenda.
Discussion. I would ask all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you. The first item on our discussion agenda, call on Sharman, provide us with an overview of the Budget and Finance Committee work on Excel and CTE fees.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Frederick. I just wanted to provide a brief update after the TEA met in January, looking at the Excel and CTE fees. It was recommended that a small group be formed and take a deeper look. We have, the Budget Finance Committee has worked specifically with our community and technical college partners. And we have a task group that's formed. It is the entire Budget Finance Committee. In addition to that, we have Marlon Thornburg, the president from Coffeyville, and Greg Nichols, the president at Salina Area Tech. And then for CFOs, we have Carla Armstrong from Garden City Community College and Nancy Thompson from the Flint Hills Tech College in attendance. We had our kickoff meeting at 9 o'clock this morning with lots of discussion already. Lots of discussion, lots of takeaways already, and I would invite certainly Chair Sneeden and Vice Chair Rice to add anything else, or we'd stand for questions.
Thank you, Charmin. Appreciate your leadership on that. I would echo that it was a very helpful discussion, at least from my point of view, and I think the others on the committee. Our goal is to look for ways to make the data submission of the Excel CTE fees more intelligible for this body, so that when we look those over every year, we are in a better position to understand what we're seeing, and we can tell apples from apples and oranges from oranges. And I think it's going to be a good process to refine that system, and will put us all in a better position to feel good about when we vote to approve those fees every year. So, and thank you to the folks from the institutions. It's a good conversation. I was just going to echo Curtis on the institutions. That's an important part. And this morning was well received, and gives us a lot of things to think about that we don't always think about.
And I would echo as the same. I think it was a very good start to a conversation that's ongoing. And also thank you to David and Curtis for your leadership in this effort. But I think we're off to a good start. So, and to you as well, of course, Sherman. Thank you. You're our go-to person. Thank you. All right, we're ready for a legislative update. So, Fred, welcome. We're glad you're here, and you may be glad you're here too.
I'm glad to be over here, not over there. Yeah. I tried to come up with 3 songs like Jim, but I figured I'd get fired, so I couldn't come up with anything good to describe the legislative process.
How about Jesus Loves Me? Let's start there.
That's actually funny. The other morning I was in the speaker's office, and he said when things get crazy, he starts humming that to himself, that exact song. So anyway, we have made it to first adjournment, at least nearly to first adjournment. Assuming everything goes as planned, they hope to wrap up tonight. And as we know with the legislature, a day doesn't actually end until they gavel out. So I'm guessing tonight doesn't end before midnight, but at some point before morning, they will be done. So just a couple hours to go. Then they'll be gone for a couple weeks, and they're coming back for a really short veto session. They'll be back April 10th. They plan to be done no later than April 12th. And at this point, they only intend to consider veto. So no new activity will take place when they come back. As you all know, it's been an extremely fast session. Also the first session in a long time where the legislature did their own budget. That's been a frustrating process at times for both legislators and those of us advocating, just trying to figure out how it's going to work. Usually in the past, the governor would introduce a budget. She'd talk about it at her State of the State. Her staff would give an overview the next day, and then it would take a couple weeks before a budget was actually turned in. This time, the legislature had a couple meetings in the fall, and they put together their own budget. They would sometimes compare where they were at with the governor's budget, but for the most part, they were working on their own. All that being said, at the end, it ended up like every other budget in recent times, where you had the 3 negotiators on behalf of the Senate and 3 on behalf of the House, and they sat down in a room over a couple days and worked it all out. So we'll see. They intend to continue that process in the future. I think that'll start a little bit earlier in the year, and so hopefully that'll work better. And I think the Regent system will have to move some dates earlier as well, as they're working on its budget or on our budget. So Because of a negative budget forecast and the desire to give more tax relief, there really were the budget's pretty bare bones, no new enhancements. That being said, we feel pretty good about how we ended up in the budget, at least if it ends up where we think it's at today. If we can get one major item fixed that has quite a negative impact to a number of our community colleges, but we've been sitting over there texting back and forth, and there's conversations going on and all. I think we're close to getting that figured out. So hopefully that works out. Non-budgetary items, while at times we thought some things may get off track, for most things we were able to, they had hearings, didn't go anywhere, so nothing negative came from that. The board did have one legislative proposal that dealt with their service scholarship interest rates, making them all uniform. They were kind of all over the place. That passed both chambers. The Senate changed it though, so they went to conference, ended up taking our original position. It's passed the House again. It's scheduled to be before the Senate here any minute. So hopefully that will move on to the governor here shortly. House Bill 2402, which you may have heard about, that would create the Blue Ribbon Commission on Higher Education, introduced really late in session. It got out of the House, didn't go any further, but they did drop it in as a budget proviso. So it will be a one-year proviso. So that'll kind of get started, and they'll probably take it up again next session to try to see what that's going to look like moving forward. Lots of information gathering, talking about what higher ed may or may not look like in the future. Some people are concerned about it, some aren't. It's going to take a lot of work, I think, for the Regent system to supply information. At the end of the day, I mean, it is what it is. By the time it's fully done, we'll have a new speaker, like maybe a new Senate president. We'll have a new governor. So who knows? But if we take the right approach, it could be a good process, hopefully. So super quick update. Any questions about anything? Anything I'd have to tell you for sure could change by midnight tonight, but that's where we're at.
Did you say that there may be a new speaker?
We would certainly, the speaker does not, so 2402 was set to be a 2-year commission to look at higher ed, and Dan Hawkins does not intend to run again. So by the time 2026 gets, or 2020, whenever the final report would be, what are we in now, 2025? So I think the final one was due January 27. There would be a new speaker by then. He's already made the decision. He will not run again. But historically, speakers only serve 2 terms as speaker. Ron Reichman varied from that and did 3 terms, but Dan's made it very clear, the current speaker, that he won't run again. So Ty would be in the middle of a 4-year term as Senate president, assuming he doesn't run for something else and win or lose that.
Questions, comments? I guess we'll wait and see.
We will.
Over.
Very good. Good to see you all. Thank you.
Next, I want to call on Vera Brown, Dr. Vera Brown, for Fort Perk State Determined Performance Levels. Do I have that right?
Okay, well, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
Good morning.
What do I know?
Today, I'm here in front of you talking about the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for 21st Century Act, which we lovingly call it Perkins 5. And that is because it was reauthorized in 2018. And with that reauthorization came new requirements, one of which was setting state-determined performance levels, or SDPLs, I will refer to them as that. Previously, states negotiated their performance targets for Perkins, and now there's a specific way in the law to set performance targets instead of negotiating them with the U.S. Department of Education. So there are a couple of ways that it is done. First of all, our baseline has to be an average of 2 years of actual data. We must increase our levels to show meaningful progress. And if there are any unexpected circumstances, those can be discussed with the U.S. Department of Education. For instance, if there's an assessment that's changing and we are having new cut scores, we don't know what that's going to be, so we adjust levels based on that. The process involves stakeholder consultation, which today is part of that process, as well as a 60-day public comment period. So our SDPLs, as proposed, are already out for comment. On our website, there is a link for a survey. Anyone who would like to comment, please do so. We will write written responses to any comments and submit those responses to the U.S. Department of Education when we submit our SDPLs, and they are due to the department on May 9th. So this whole spring is going to be a process of commenting and gathering input. We've provided the actual levels of performance for just your information for the last 2 cycles, 2 years. You will see that we are performing really well, especially graduation rate, placement, things that are very important. We do have some areas where we are asking for lower performance levels because of the new assessment that is going to be in our state coming up. So we've provided all that information. We have favorable responses from the U.S. Department of Education. They feel like comfortable with our performance levels. But of course, the real test is when we submit them as a final in May. And I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions, comments? Yes, April?
I was just going to add, so when you look at this chart, the top 7, if it has an S in the middle, so one S1, one S2, there's 7 indicators. The S means secondary. So we are a unique state where we split Perkins 50-50. That is not normal. Normally one agency has more than the other. So some of those questions, if you have it for the indicators, those first 7 that have an S in the middle, we would ask Natalie to comment on those. The higher ed ones are the ones that have P. So we have 3 indicators, 1P1, 2P1, and 3P1. Just
And
letting you
for
know the
those,
difference.
we measure placement of students 1 year out after graduation. We measure earned recognized post-secondary credential. That can be either from a college or from a third-party industry recognized body. And finally, we measure non-traditional program concentration, and that is looking at occupations where more than 25% is of one gender. So we're looking at nurses that are male or female welders. And those are the 3 post-secondary indicators.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Okay, our next item on our agenda, call on Vice President April White to present a request from the Southeast Technical Academy for rural students. I hope that had a chance to review this information. So we're gonna turn it over to you, April.
Thank you. And as Chair Frederick alluded, this is a unique request to the board office. So we do have with us representation from Fort Scott Community College. We have their president, Sarah Sutton. We also have Don Epps, who is the superintendent of USD 344 on Zoom with us today. We also have, if you guys have not met, John Yeary, our legal counsel, as well as Gage Rolfe, also legal counsel, so that if you have questions as we go through this, we can ask them to clarify if I'm not being clear or I'm not an attorney. So if you have questions, ask them. So a little bit of background. On April 27th, the board office received a letter from the Southeastern Technical Academy for Rural Students, also known as STARS. And in their letter, they requested a separation from Fort Scott Community College. Now, this is interesting for us. So the first thing we did is we looked at the service map. So Fort Scott Community College is in Bourbon County. I'm going to say own, but that's not the correct term. Their service area is Lynn County, which is right above them. And that is where STARS is located, in Lynn County, just north of Bourbon. So it's in Fort Scott service area. So on February 10th, President Flanders, our Chief of Staff, Kelly Oliver, and I met with the STARS representatives, so Superintendent Epps and Dr. Jay Allen, to get a better understanding of what their request was. To be fair, we also met with Fort Scott Community College on February 20th. We also met with members of their Board of Trustees and their admin to understand from their point of view what has transpired between this relationship. So the background, this is going to be some quick background, but important to the particular conversation. I think between the two entities, we have over 450 pages of information. Not all of it pertains to the actual request. And keep in mind that request, the language from the STARS letters in the issue paper, STARS is seeking guidance from the Kansas Board of Regents and possibly mediate a release from Fort Scott Community College to create a partnership with another institution that will agree to a fair and equitable MOU for all parties involved. So that is their official request. So when we started down the road of looking at this request, the first thing we have to do, since the Board of Regents does not govern the two-year sector, we coordinate, is we have to go to law. We have to go to what does the law say? So the first, well, let me back up. Before we even get to the law, let me explain what has happened between the two entities. So the partnership has been talked about, I think, for 4 administrations of the college. It dates back very far. So nobody who was part of those original conversations, I believe, are at the college, on the board, or at STARS. So these conversations have been taking place for a very long time. USD 344, in response to those conversations, located a building at 1701 Laurel Street in Pleasanton, Kansas, and they purchased that building and began renovations so that it can be used as a college campus to provide college programs in. They also created a 501c3, which is the nonprofit STARS that we're talking about. So STARS is the nonprofit. The building is the campus. Just think of it that way. So they developed the 501c3 to protect all parties involved. So all the high schools that are involved, the Fort Scott Community College sits on that board of trustees, or that board of the STARS. So they did that for the guiding principle of this campus. Think of it that way. Fort Scott hired all the staff to manage the building, to teach the content. They outfitted the space, the teaching space, with simulators, with equipment, with tools, desks, chairs, all the things that are needed for operating a campus. In 23, so relatively short time ago, the first cohort of students went through, and they started with 40, and now enrollments in their 3rd year of operation have gone over 120 students. So it is growing. The problem is, to date, there is no memorandum of understanding between Fort Scott Community College and STARS. Both entities tried to find if there was anything historically that they had anything in writing, and there was not anything in writing. So I'm going to stop there, make sure I didn't misstate anything. I'm going to look at Sarah, I'm going to look at Dawn, make sure I didn't misstate anything, and ask the TEA if there are any questions before we move on.
Okay, everyone following along? Same hymn book and all that?
Well, let's just make sure.
Go ahead.
So you have 2 entities that have been working together for a period of 2-3 years. There has been no agreement, no MOU, no legal agreement to operate jointly. They just agreed, one entity to provide the building, the other entity to provide the contents and the materials needed to provide the service.
Correct.
Where
And Ms. White, do you hear me? This is Don Epps.
Yes.
Hey, sorry, but Dr. Jay Allen, our director at STARS, he was there from the infancy of the program. He's from the very start. He was a part of the process, so he has the best background knowledge of the processes that took place from the start to where we are now as well. So, and he's here with us in this Zoom call.
Let's let Deborah continue.
Okay, so we have 2 separate entities, no agreement they've provided. When the students enroll, they are students of Fort Scott Community College. They pay tuition or they receive funding to participate.
Right.
That would be, I assume, high school students receiving state funding to participate.
Mhm.
So the benefit, there's a benefit for community, for students to participate. There's a benefit for students to have access that they otherwise may not have had as easily accessible services. And the institution is supporting their activities so that they are financially not in the hole to provide those activities. Is that right? Or
You're on the right
maybe not
track.
in the hole, but
You're on the right track.
that's how it separates out.
Yep, so you're on the right track. So Fort Scott by law has to receive federal or state aid, they have to own the curriculum, hire the faculty, all of that. So to receive Excel and CTE funding, faculty and the management of the program has to be the college. The simplest ways that I can make this make sense is I think of STARS. It's an entity that owns a campus, and the campus is where Fort Scott is offering services. The trouble now becomes, how do we keep the lights on? How do we make the mortgage payment for the building? How do we keep the water on, buy additional supplies for whatever programs?
By we, it is how do either STARS and or Fort Scott
Correct.
Community College do that?
Correct. And since there is no agreement, it's not happening. Now, both sides have tried to present an agreement to the other side, that they cannot come to an agreement on this. That is why they brought it before us.
Do you want to continue?
Yep, we can continue. That is confusing. That's the background. So we took that request and then we broke it down into law. So basically 4 areas of law we wanted to look at: oversight, service areas, state funding, and CTE programs outside of a service area. Now, obviously that kind of coincides with service areas, but there are some exceptions to the law that allows the board to let other people in. So we wanted to look at all of it. So very first one we looked at, what is the oversight? So oversight, in the very general terms, the Board of Regents is to provide leadership, supervision, coordination for post-secondary, as well as advocate for adequate resources for all post-secondary institutions. That's very broad. That's known as the Kansas Higher Ed Coordination Act. There's a lot of things underneath that, but that is very broad what the Board of Regents does. We do not govern, we coordinate. So the TEA, we looked at what is their responsibility. So they have delegated authority of about 20 different items. If you add them all up, if you look at the legislation, 20 different items that include things like approving or disapproving programs for state funding, setting benchmarks and accountability indicators, the Excel and CTE fees, Promise Act programs, transfer between secondary and post-secondary, as well as oversee certain federal grants like Perkins and Adult Ed, as well as state grants like the nursing grant. So that's really where the TEA's authority lies. So then I looked, okay, what does the Board of Trustees, the statute for the Board of Trustees say? So every Board of Trustees, there's a statute. They need to meet the language of the law. So the Board of Trustees statute says that in accordance with all state laws and rules and regs of the board, so they still have to pay attention to whatever's in law and what the rules and regs of the board say, that the Board of Trustees is responsible for operation, management, and control of the college. This includes suing somebody, being sued, entering into contracts, those types of things. So the first part of the request is the board and the TEA has no authority over the contract piece. So the MOU, we have no say over the contract. I'm gonna look at John to make sure I'm explaining this correctly. Okay. So we can leave the MOU out of their request because we can't, that is a local issue. The MOU is the Board of Trustees of Fort Scott. They have to decide to enter into that agreement. So the next part is let's look at service areas. So what are the service areas? And by law, the Board of Regents is in control of the service areas. A map for community college, technical colleges, and universities were developed, I think, before I was born, and has just been that way. They could, if the board wanted to, revisit that. But we're talking 105 counties. Every congressional district, every high school, every person in the state would be able to weigh in on that. That is a much bigger process and project to go through than this particular issue. So it could be a recommendation to the board that, hey, maybe we give service areas another look, but it's not going to solve this by next fall. So that part, I don't know that we'd get much movement there. So the next thing we looked at with service areas, what about funding? Funding with service areas. So if you look at KSA, and all the KSAs are in the issue paper if you want it. We also have the full language of the law if you want us to bring it up and project it, but I don't know that you want to. But 71609 says that no amount of funding shall be based upon enrollment in any subject or course, the principal part of which is taught at a location outside of the main campus of the community college or its service area. So another community college coming in isn't just the option. It is an option, but it's not an option of the board. That's when we'll get into state funding. That'll come into play. But there is a possibility that Fort Scott could grant permission for somebody to come in to their service area. If you think about that, that is loss of funding. They are currently serving those students. So it's a choice they can make. It's not something the board can push. In Chapter 3 of the board policy, Chapter 3, Article 8, the board policy does state that it is a responsibility of the home institution to serve the community, their service area. It is their responsibility to do that. It's their primary responsibility. Before we go allowing anyone else into a service area, we have to take into account, are they currently serving as their primary role? And right now, the programs that are being requested from STARS are offered by Fort Scott and there. So that particular law and that policy doesn't apply to the situation. So then we move into state funding. What does the law say about state funding? What kind of movement do we have there? So the career technical education program outside of service area, so this is going to hit service area and the fourth category. It does allow the Board of Regents to allow an institution, so let's say, for example, Fort Scott does not offer X program. The high school wants X program. Fort Scott they aren't going to offer it. They're going to block somebody out of the service area, and they have no intention of ever offering program X. The board can override them at that point. But again, this law, or what's happening here, this particular situation, Fort Scott is offering the programs that STARS want. So that law does not apply. Nothing under that law. Am I losing everybody? Everybody following along? Okay. Okay. So another part of this conversation that was brought up during different conversations was allowing another school in or bringing another school in. As I said, under that exact same statute I just referenced, the board cannot force another school in there. Fort Scott can allow it. If another school wants to have that territory and makes an application to Fort Scott's board, they can approve it. I don't know that would happen, but that is a possibility, maybe for a cool-off period between the two entities. Another thing that has been mentioned was allowing a university in. So allowing Pitt State to come in to the STARS location and teach those technical programs. They can, Pitt State can come in and teach. However, Pitt State is not an eligible institution for two-year funding. So when we talk about tiered, non-tiered, Excel, and CTE, they are not an eligible recipient per statute for those fundings. So they could, STARS could allow them in, the funding just is not going to follow. Those are all of the laws that we went through, and we couldn't find anything else that pertained to this particular situation. So in their original request, we can't allow anybody else into their service area because the several statutes that I referenced, the college is currently offering it. They're serving their area, their primary area. We have no control over their MOUs, the college's ability to enter into a contract. And for that reason, our recommendation is that, or our proposed to you all to discuss, is that this is a local issue that the board and the TEA have really no dog in the fight with. But we would recommend the two entities try to work together, because at the end of the day, students are enrolled there and students are the ones who are going to be harmed if this doesn't exist. And with that, let's stand for questions. I'm sure there will be a few of them.
Questions and comments related to what we just heard. Yes, David?
Comment. Service areas have been around a long time.
Mhm.
Chaos.
This is not working.
There you go.
Sir, you're going to have chaos with service areas if you don't have service areas. And it works very well. And from me being a former college president, you know, Barton County had a great water treatment program or something. Highland didn't do that. They called us, they came into our service area, did it at multiple locations about every year, and it works. And Fort Scott's got a service area, they need to service this. If there's a program they're not offering and they want to approve someone else to go in, that's fine. But I'm in favor of what you have written here. Fort Scott and STARS needs to work out an MOU, which I can't believe they began without one. Where were their legal counsels? But number two, it's got to be Fort Scott, in my opinion.
Is there any precedent for this body or KBOR to mediate in this sort of thing?
I'm looking at legal counsel.
Okay.
A recommendation otherwise.
That's my second question. You did talk about how it affects the students. And you've laid out very clearly and thoroughly, appreciate all this work to basically explain that this isn't really the sort of thing we would take up and sort of adjudicate or get in the middle of. So, but in terms of the students that could be adversely affected if the thing folds, do we have a course of action there, or do we just have to watch that happen?
I'm going to look at John, but based on the laws, and again, I'm not an attorney, but how we have interpreted them, there isn't a place for us to step in this matter. Now, we have offered, and the offer still stands, that I'm happy to come help have those conversations, to dig into the data, to make sure we're comparing apples to apples when we're looking at funding and how it flows in and expenses out. That I think that's about as far as we could go in trying to assist with the partnership.
Other comments or questions from the TEA? Yes.
Whatever. Seems like, based on what we're hearing, it seems like two entities that have an interest in helping students need to find a solution to work together for the benefit of students. So I would agree with the recommendation that we have, that that's what we support, propose happen, yeah.
Any other comments? My comment includes, I have to ask myself, what basis does the TEA have beyond receiving, reviewing, and perhaps researching the complaint that has been sent our way? we can certainly make a recommendation to the Board of Regents. But to interfere or engage in this dispute simply is beyond the scope of the TEA. It is not my place to side with either party in this dispute. However, it is my duty to see that the TEA fulfills its duties. My opinion, it would appear we have done so. And in the end, this appears to be a local matter and would recommend that STARS, Fort Scott Community College, work together to develop a coordinated plan to serve the students in Lynn County. So my question becomes, what action is needed from the TEA?
I'm going to look at legal counsel because I think we are making a recommendation. We are asking you to make a recommendation so that we can take this to the Board of Regents. Is that accurate?
Can do that. I mean, choose, could make a recommendation, that recommendation to the Board of Regents or another one.
Okay. Did I hear someone making that recommendation? David? There. Okay. Deborah, second. Any further discussion, TA members? Yes, sir.
Council, would there be any value or does it even matter if this body, if that motion included a definitive statement that encapsulates the research you've done and kind of your closing statement there? Because we aren't exactly formally saying this is not something we would get into, although that's clearly the spirit of the conversation. So does it make any difference if this body has voted that we agree with your research and that's the case or not?
I think that if the TEA chooses to make a recommendation to the board that the parties work together, that the information that April put together could be included with that, certainly to the board, I think. Does that answer your question?
Well, I mean, just for future purposes, is there any value in it being the official stand of this body that we don't delve into local kind of conflicts like this? I don't know. I mean, it's based on the statute, so it might not matter what we vote.
Would it be appropriate to add, ask if you would, if David would accept that we say based on the information provided, that it's our recommendation? Does that cover what you're addressing? And then you can include the information in the documents that you have so that there is a reference to how the information or how the decision was made. Is that addressed? Second the amendment.
Hey, are there any additional questions related to the motion and the recommendation that we're going to pass forward? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And April, thank you and your staff for putting this all together for us in a way that not only made sense, but makes it easier to make a recommendation and a decision. Okay, before we close out our meeting, I've got two things that I need to at least mention. The first one is the green sheets, folks. There's a note here said, even if members are not submitting costs, please sign the green travel sheet so we can collect the attendance. Okay? And if you don't do that, Charmin will call you. And you don't want to get that call, I'm telling you. That's all right. The last thing, at least that I want to mention today is, but today we want to recognize the services of Mark Hess on the TEA. Mark's appointment comes to an end this term, so it's not a happy thing, but anyway, we certainly want to express an appreciation. And it wasn't long ago that I was kind of kidding Mark. I said, "Why isn't your picture on our website?" They'd taken his picture like 3 times.
It's not photogenic.
Well, and I told him at the time, I said, Mark, you've been voted the best looking male on the TEA. And I should say, well, I want to say, sorry, Mike, at least you came in close to 4th place. But the Quakers have a saying, let your life speak. And I must say that Mark's life has clearly spoken in his commitment and support of technical education. For our benefit, Mark has always been a voice of reason on the TEA and greatly appreciated to have that voice of reason. So Mark, today we say thank you for your service on the TEA and trust you will continue to be an ambassador for technical education. So let's thank Mark. And Mark, we do have, it's not a cash award or anything. We even go out here.
We won't put it on the website anyway. We won't put it on the website anyway.
Anyway, Mark, congratulations. What a pleasure it's been having you as a member of the team.
It's amazing how fast 6.5 years goes by. So I guess on that comment, I probably need a few more of these and get 40 or so of them. Yeah, it's been an honor and a privilege to be part of the.
Thank you. Okay, just a reminder, our next meeting is April 24th, and that will be a Zoom meeting, Thursday, April 24th, 2025. So if there's no further business, we are adjourned. Thank you all.